Representing the ALTA is this year's president, Richard Welshons. He has more than 40 years of experience in our industry. He began his title industry career when he joined Dakota County Abstract, an agency founded by his father, Paul, and grandfather, Amos, in Hastings, Minnesota. He was named the president of the company in 1989 upon his father's retirement. Richard and his brother, Dave, owned and ran the company until they sold it in North Dakota Guarantee and Title Company in 2022. A member of ALTA Board of Governors, Richard has also serves on ALTA Good Deeds Foundation Board of Directors and is also involved in several ALTA engagement groups. Richard earned ALTA's highest award, National Title Professional designation in 2023. Additionally, Richard has served on the Minnesota Land Title Association Board of Directors since 1997. Many of his roles for MLTA was president in 2001 to 2002, Secretary of the Treasury 2003, and Political Action Committee Director. Active in his local community, Richard has served on the Board of Directors for Hastings Area Chamber of Commerce, the Hastings Area YMCA, and the Hastings Public School Foundation. He has participated in many other community committees, boards, and commissions throughout the years. He and his wife Jody reside in Hastings, Minnesota. Let's give a great Oklahoma welcome to Mr. Richard Welshons.
Good morning, everyone. Well, thanks for having me. Keynote speaker makes me a little nervous because I feel like I have to deliver. And I feel like I'm failing right off the bat because Alta 101 says that you remove your name tag before you get on stage. That's ingrained in us as board members. And but this morning I became a keg, so I wanted to show that off a little bit. And I can't tell you what it means. My wife already asked me, and I passed the first test when I said I can't tell you. Okay. And then I got a story to tell about these little name tags. I like to tell this story. I love coming to conventions where they have these little ribbons, because years ago, I grew up in a family going to MLTA conventions, Minnesota Land Title Association, and my kids too. Now my grandkids, they come to the MLTA every summer. And so I remember years ago, my brother and I were walking back to our rooms, and I had my 3 children with me. And my older son was maybe 8 at the time, and our daughter would have been, I suppose, 13, so she knew it all, right? And my son said, "Why is it that Uncle Dave only has 2 ribbons on his name tag, but Dad has 3? And my daughter, without missing a beat, said, "Well, that's because Dad's a bigger dork than Uncle Dave." All right? So look around the room, and you can see who the dorks are, right? But we're proud of it, right? We're title dorks, and we're good at it. It's exciting to see going through the list of people here, or going through the years of experience, and it's important to see people with 50 years of experience, 40 years, 30 years. That's great. It's unfortunate there weren't more people with 5 years and less that stood up, because really that's the future of our industry. And I hope to see that grow. And realistically, those aren't the people that probably come to the convention in the first place. But I'd like to see that grow, and I think it's important for all of us. So thank you for having me here. My wife Jody and I came on, what day is today? Saturday? Wednesday. We came Wednesday. So we got to come down a little early, like to get someplace either a day early or stay a day late. So it's been great. A lot of friendly people. And Casey. So thank you for having us here. No, I'm kidding. I met Casey at the Colorado convention last year when I stole his gift bag. And I took it back to my room, and my wife says, "Who's this Casey, and when am I going to find out about her?" And I said, "Well, I think it's the other president from a different state." So, okay. So I'm here to talk about defending your business and what's in the future, what's in the horizon for the title industry. And really, at this point, who knows? It changes every day. With the change in the administration, we thought that perhaps we would see things settle down, and yet every day there's something new coming out of Washington. Let's see. That's me. I'm going the wrong way, aren't I? Here we go. There we go. Okay, so ALTA, we are here to advocate on behalf of our members. So I ran into a gentleman from Alliant earlier, and he said he was in Minnesota a couple weeks ago, and he said, I was at your spring conference and you weren't there. Well, I was in DC. I had to fly out to DC to meet with the new FHFA director, Bill Pulte. And that's what we do. Many of you, I hope, will come to the Advocacy Summit in DC next month, where we will meet with legislators and talk to them about issues affecting our industry. But ALTA is the voice for all of you. If you're not a member, there's a booth out here, and Megan Hunt from West Coast, she's right here. She will help you become a member and teach you about the benefits of membership to ALTA, because we not only do we draft the forms that you use, the ALTA forms, we can offer you a lot more services. So if you're only a policy license holder, I would encourage you to talk to Megan or talk to me, and we'd be happy to get you signed up with full membership. We also provide education for all of our members. I'll be talking a little bit later about some of the reporting that FinCEN is going to require of all of us in the coming year, starting December 1st. And ALTA will start having meetings on this subject in the next few months here. I think starting this month, if not next month, there'll be 3 of them coming up. Networking opportunities. So we all know why half of the group is not here this morning. It's because they were networking last night in the hospitality suite, right? ALTA offers the same opportunities, except in different locations. So I hope you all join me in New York in October, where it'll be my year as president in ALTA, and then I will swear in David Townsend, who many of you probably know because he's from Missouri, right nearby. David Townsend from Fidelity will become the next president. And we also create the ALTA forms. I already mentioned that we all use. So I'm going to move along here. I want to recognize some of the all-stars here from Oklahoma. So they don't give me any names or anything. They just give me this slide that says recognize the all-stars. So I would ask anyone here who's involved in an ALTA committee to please stand and stay standing. Thank you. Okay. How about anyone who's a member of TAN? Any members of TAN here? Okay, thank you. Now, by the end of this meeting, I want you all to be members of TAN, but we'll get to that later. How about committees for OLTA? How many committee members here? Probably a lot, many of you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for being all-stars in the room. So every year in July, they fly the board, or we fly it ourselves. ALTA doesn't pay for much. And we fly ourselves to DC, and they lock us in a room for a couple of days and try to come up with our strategic priorities for the coming year. This year, we focused on 3 of them: championing the title industry and combating regulatory threats. We'll get into it a little more, but we'll talk about alternatives to title insurance and some of the things that the last administration had proposed. Promote title insurance as strongest protection for property rights. We all know that's a fact. Attorneys' opinions are great, but they don't offer the same protections as title insurance. And then succeeding through adaptation. I'm not going to touch on that a whole lot. We had some great speakers yesterday talking about AI, but as an industry, we have to adapt. We have to do things faster, more efficiently, and ALTA's here to help us all do that. So the first thing is championing the title insurance industry. FinCEN, this is what I was talking about. ALTA is going to be doing some training on. So I don't believe that any of the counties in Oklahoma, just like I'm from Minnesota, I should say that. I'm from Minnesota, if you didn't know that. And we are Minnesota, none of the counties in Minnesota are subject to the FinCEN's targeting orders, which have been around for about 9 years. They came on board right when I came on ALTA's board. And the way that I'm going to explain how they currently work. So the targeting orders, Texas would be familiar with them, maybe not in East Texas, but in places like Houston and Dallas. It started in Manhattan and Miami. And the federal government decided they wanted to try to track illegal money that's coming in, that's being used and laundered through the real estate industry. So they targeted those two markets and said, any cash transactions that over $100,000, we require the title insurance company, the settlement company, to report the beneficial ownership of the buyers and, in some cases, the sellers of these transactions. So they want to know who, if Joe Smith LLC is buying a $3 million condo for cash in Miami, they want to know who's Joe Smith LLC, who are the beneficial owners of that, and you need to report that beneficial ownership along with social security numbers or foreign information. Every bit of information that the government requires of you, you have to report that to the federal government. Those initial targeting orders from New York City and Miami expanded, and they're all over the US now. Like I said, I don't think in Oklahoma, I know not in Minnesota. They went from New York to Florida, they expanded it in those markets. It's a lot of in Texas, Arizona, California, Colorado, and all through the ski country there, Hawaii, anywhere where there's really, really hot real estate, expensive real estate, that's where they've gone, and they've enforced these targeted orders and they've required title or settlement agents to report this information on any cash transaction over $100,000. Starting December 1st of this year, 2025, this rule is going nationwide. Every county in the United States, the threshold from $100,000 is going down to zero. Any cash transaction that you have with an entity, an LLC, some other group that is not an individual, this is a residential property, okay? So any transaction, you will have to gather the beneficial ownership of the entity that is purchasing the property and report information on the buyers and sellers, their social security numbers, their addresses, their names. All of that must be reported to the federal government. They came out with a questionnaire of about 90 some questions. Alta has been working with FinCEN to get this reduced down to a more manageable amount, but it's important for you to take the training that Alta will be offering, to take any training that your underwriters will be offering, to take any training that your software companies will be offering on how to report this information. It's important for you to go back to your software companies and ask them, are you going to have the capability for my company to report this information? Because if you don't report this information, it's civilly and criminally punishable. So that falls upon the reporter. So whoever it is in your office, whether it's you, whether it's a group of people, whoever submits that information, if it's incorrect or it doesn't get submitted on time, they can be held criminally responsible and civilly responsible. So it's very, very important. I think these slides are out of order, but I didn't realize it till I was on the airplane coming here, because I don't usually look at these until right before I get somewhere. This went into effect, I believe, January 1st of this year, which required whether you knew it or not, every entity in the United States to report their beneficial ownership. And there were many exemptions, and many title companies are exempt from that. But Alta has been successful, and other groups have been successful in pushing back on that. And FinCEN has dialed that back to say, okay, that's only for non-US entities. Now, we'd like to see that carried forward with the reporting for real estate transactions for non-US entities, but that's not the case at this time. So while Alta, and I'd like to welcome Ashley to the room. We'd like to hear from Missouri, the report from Missouri right now. Well, we'll wait till I'm done. Is that okay? Okay, give you a little time. You know, it's really bright up here, but I did see you come in. I guess what I'm saying is it's time to prepare yourselves. Talk to your underwriters, talk to your staff, talk to Alta, find out what it is that you need to do to get this reporting in place. Now we got to go back over a year. It was early 20, I don't even know if it says on the slide, but Biden's State of the Union, early, must have been 2024. When he came out, if you remember, he came out and talked about affordable housing, and he specifically called out the title industry and said, in effect, title insurance is too expensive, and that's one of the things that hinders the ability for people to afford a home. Now, you and I know that's not true. The amount that is charged for title insurance is minuscule compared to what others in the transaction are charging. And we are all pro people being able to get into homes. I mean, that's our livelihood. We're not trying to prevent it. We want homes to be affordable just like anyone else. We're not the bad guys. We're protecting these homeowners. But FHFA FHFA, who had previously said they would waive any waivers, that they did require title insurance, the president came out and said, FHFA, I want you to try something new. Try to accept products that don't have title insurance. Now, as an industry, that goes against everything that we do. The FHFA seems to think that they can work with companies who can just enter your address into a database and get a title report. Or they can enter in maybe a credit report, and they can issue title insurance based on that. Now, how many here think that that's? I mean, certainly, it's gotten easier to perform what we do, but you all know when you go into the office to do you get an order in for a commitment, and you just type that address into your computer, and it spits out a commitment, correct? And all the issues are resolved, and then you just close, right? So we're charging all this premium because we don't pay any claims, right? We all know title insurance doesn't pay claims. We don't. Well, that's what FHFA seems to think, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac want to buy mortgages without that protection. And if you'll remember, both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are still in receivership from 2008 when they started to accept risky loans back then and had to be bailed out by you and me, by the U.S. Treasury. We had to bail them out. Now assume that they're taking on the risk of taking in mortgages without title insurance, and there's a title insurance claim. Someone doesn't rightfully own that property. Who's going to bail out that homeowner? Well, again, it goes to the Treasury. I'm losing myself. I'm just wandering away on here. So here's what I did. This is where you can all get involved. This was, again, back when Biden was president. And this is not political at all. I'm not trying to pick sides one or the other. But when he was president, my representative is also of the same party. She's a Democrat, Angie Craig. And I called Angie and I said, hey, Angie, and I'd met her, but didn't really know her. Called her staff and said, I want the Congresswoman to come out to my office, and I want her to hear what it is that we do. And it took a few months, but she finally agreed to come out. And I got a group of closers to sit in a room with her, and we kind of had a strategy about explaining different title issues and what it is that they do on a daily basis and how it is that they get people into their homes. And so we were told we'd have 20 minutes with the congressman, and then her handler got there before her, and they said, she's running late, you'll have 15 minutes. And then before she got there, they said, it's going to be, she's running even later. It's going to be maybe 10 minutes. You'll have 10 minutes with the congressman. So she came in, she sat down in this room with our closers, and our closers just started to explain what it is that she did. And then her handler said, Angie, it's time to go. And she said, no, wait, I want to hear more. And she stayed, and she listened for 20 to 25 minutes. And then she stayed for photos too. But she flat out told our group, she said, you know what? The last thing I ever wanted to do was to go to a title insurance office, and I'm so glad that I did. Then she said, what's your ask? Someone doesn't invite me to their office without an ask. And I said, well, we have this letter to the president that many Congress people have signed on to opposing what he's suggesting that FHFA should allow a title waiver pilot. She said, I'll take it under advisement. She called a week later, her staff called and said, Angie's going to sign the letter. So she's going against the president of her own party. She signed that letter. Last year at Advocacy Summit, we went to DC. Our group from Minnesota goes into Angie's office. She's never met with us in her office before. We've always met with a staffer. and they put us in a big room, and she came in and she said, my favorite people, title people. Whoever would have thought that I would be excited about title insurance? Then she said, you know what? The Olympics are coming up. And as a congressperson, I get to request tickets to the Olympics from the president. And I asked my staff to request tickets to the Olympics on my behalf. And they said, Congresswoman, I don't think he's going to do that because remember you signed that letter for Richard? So she said, when I'm at home watching the Olympics from home, I'm going to be thinking about title insurance and how important it is. That's the impression it made by just inviting this person out to my office. And I would encourage each of you to do the same thing in your offices. Invite your local or your U.S. congressperson or even your local people so that they know what it is when you're talking about the abstractors board. They know what it is, what your local issues are. But on a federal thing, you can talk to them about the FHA pilot waiver and explain to them how it's dangerous for the consumer. So think about this. What Fannie Mae is proposing, or what FHFA is proposing that Fannie Mae does, is that they accept mortgages from a lender who pays Fannie Mae a fee, or Fannie Mae receives a fee, and then Fannie Mae assumes the risk if there's a claim. Now, any lawyers here, what is it when you exchange risk for a fee? That's insurance, correct? So Fannie Mae is saying, we want to take on the role as an insurance company, but they're a federal agency and insurance is regulated at the state level. So you should engage, I would encourage you to engage your insurance commission here within your state to say that this is a violation of state law. This is what we're doing in Minnesota. It's a violation for them on a national level to be offering this product. Where are we here? Okay. Expanding this to also include attorney's opinion letters. Now, I know that you're an abstracting state. I assume that attorneys still issue attorney's opinions here. These are different. These are lenders, large lenders, who are willing to get a quote unquote title report. They have staff attorneys who issue a letter that basically says, it all looks good to us. And then they sell these to Fannie Mae with no title insurance. And Fannie Mae is at this point willing to accept them on refinances, which in my office, that's primarily what we're doing these days because rates are high. And as they drop down, people are refinancing to take advantage of the lower rates. They'll also accept it on any a refinance, but any planned unit development. So any condominium, any townhome, anything like that, which is a great percentage of the transactions that we do throughout the United States. I can't read my slide, it went away. But let's move on. Here we go. So important to continue to educate our lawmakers, and it's important to talk to your customers about it. I know that we've had success, brokers that come to us and say, hey, my lender, I've got a loan for my customer, but they don't want title insurance, but they want your company to close it. And I said, no, we won't do it because this lender wants me as a title agent to issue a CPL or guarantee the transaction and the funds on a transaction that I'm not insuring. Not really fair. So we refuse to do them. And what my lending customers are finding is that it's kind of a bait and switch to their customers. They feel they're being told they're saving money, and in the end, they're really not saving money by going through those programs. So it's important to teach your customers about that and to join the Title Action Network. Now, I'm sorry to be so boring talking about all this stuff. I'm usually try to be more engaging, but I'm just trying to wake Ashley up. So make sure I'm coming in slowly, trying to warm it up, right? Title Action Network, it's free to join. I'll get to it. There's a slide here. It's free to join. All you have to do is give your name and your home address. I know that sounds scary. Why do you want my home address? It's to tie you to your congressional district. And so if there is an issue, let's say like the AOLs that come up, TAN issues an alert. And it only happens maybe 6 times a year. And this alert goes out to everyone who's a TAN member and says, this is an issue affecting the title industry. Please take action. There's a pre-written letter to your congressperson and or your senator, whoever it's targeted at. It's based on your address, and you can personalize it if you want, or you can just hit send, and it sends that letter. And it makes a huge impression in DC. So we've got thousands of TAN members across the nation, and if all of them respond to these, it makes a big impact. So I would encourage each of you to join TAN. This next slide, I don't know how much it concerns many of you. It doesn't hugely concern my direct operations, but I know it concerns our bigger company. And this is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac on multifamily projects where they are providing the financing. Think of like a senior housing project or something like that. It's multi-unit. They're doing the financing. They are not allowing title insurance agencies to disperse any funds, only underwriters. So if you get an order, you have a customer that you work with regularly, and you receive an order for a multifamily transaction being insured by Fannie or Freddie, you cannot disperse the funds at the end of the closing. You have to transfer all those funds to an underwriter, have a contract with that underwriter, and they have to disperse the funds. Now they're going to charge a fee too, so this makes the whole transaction less efficient and more expensive. So in some cases, it's taking business away from agents because these developers are choosing just to go with direct underwriters. Alta has worked to try to fight against this. So far, the only success we've had is in attorney states where underwriters don't have direct dispersing operations. In those cases, they've made exceptions. But in cases like Oklahoma or Minnesota, where I live, there's no exception. If you're a title agency, you cannot disperse on these transactions. You can insure it, you can't disperse. Potential GSE reform. There is talk about releasing Fannie and Freddie from receivership and reprivatizing them. That is, I'm going to say that's not likely to happen anytime soon. So I just was out, I met with Bill Pulte, the director, 2 weeks ago, and they've got a lot of work to do to shore up these businesses. But I would say to you, if they're encouraging Fannie and Freddie to take on more risk, what is the likelihood that they're going to be able to stand on their own? I don't think it's very likely anytime soon, even though it's a high priority of the administration. I think they've got taxes and other things to worry about first. Research and data. Alta is doing a lot of work in these areas, trying to gather research that we can use to present in DC to present our case. So for instance, I met with the director, Bill Pulte, a couple of weeks ago, and he said, you know, by doing an alternative to title insurance, a borrower can save $1,500 if they do the alternative versus doing title insurance because title insurance is so expensive. And I was with Mike Nolan, who's the CEO of Fidelity, and Mike Nolan said, you know what, we took 2 years of the pandemic, the highest rate of refinances ever. We took all of our refinances and we averaged them out, and the premium on those transactions in the dollar range that Fannie Mae was talking about, which was like $250,000 to $300,000, it came out to be about $450. He's like, how can you have $1,500 in savings if our charge is only $450? And the director said, I don't know. Figures lie, or liars can figure, but figures don't lie. Show me the figures. So Fidelity has provided those figures. Alta is trying to do the same thing, gather up as much information as we can about claims, because again, the director thinks we don't pay claims. What we do is we cure issues. We do the curative work ahead of time to prevent claims, so we pay lower claims rates, but that's how our reserves are based. If we're going to switch and become a P&C product, we have to do things completely different, and we would have to charge differently. Curative analysis, these are just some numbers that Alta has done to show how many hours we do on each file. If you look at them, an average file versus a difficult file, how many hours of work that we put into clearing these defects before we get to, in order to avoid the claims at the end. So you can see 36% of closing transactions require substantial curative work. Claims analysis, fraud and forgery. We talked about that. Some of the speakers yesterday, more energetic speakers than myself, they talked about fraud and forgeries and some of the things they had seen. I can share with you, I mean, we've had certain instances, not my favorite story, but a story that I like to tell is that my brother and I sold our company, as Casey read in that long and boring bio, in 2022. We closed on June 1st. And the reason I remember, well, it was June 1st, it was my brother's birthday, that's why I remember the date. But about May 15th, we got notice. I was at my cabin, which, by the way, I was there last weekend. First weekend, there has not been ice on the lake this year. That's where I live. That's how cold it is there. I was at the lake with my wife. My brother calls me and he says, hey, do you know Bob and Barb? I'm not gonna say their last names. And I said, yeah, I know them pretty well. He says, well, pull out your laptop and fire it up and look in this file. So I look in this file and here's a closing where Barb and Bob were sellers, and in there are colored photos of their Minnesota driver's licenses. And he said, look at those photos and tell me what you think. And my wife, Jody, was with me. Many of you met her here. And she could hear the conversation, and she looked at the pictures, and she said, you're screwed. And the thing is that she didn't say you're screwed. She said a really much more vulgar word, which, if you'd see her, you wouldn't imagine this coming out of her mouth. I mean, those of you that were at Mugs this morning probably wouldn't imagine that. But yeah, it came out just like that. And she was right. That's what we were. It was a complete forgery. The seller, the property. You've seen these scenarios. It was a piece of vacant land, unencumbered. Someone found this property, listed it on the internet, found a legitimate buyer. Legitimate buyer comes in, gives money, brings legitimate funds to our company. Closer sends off the deeds because the sellers were on vacation. The deeds come back signed with pictures of the photo IDs, an affidavit signed by the notary saying that I saw them in person, and notarizes the documents. We record the documents, and they're forgeries. So 2 days before the sale of our company, my brother and I had to pay out $120,000 to settle this claim in order to get the buyer to give a deed back to the real sellers and straighten this out before we closed on the sale of our company. So those are the types of claims that a lot of companies are seeing. Not to mention the fraudulent payoffs and changing of the payoff information. And I should add along those lines, I went to DC a couple of years ago with Dan Wald, who was president a few years ago. I know he told the boot joke here, and then he turned around and told it the other way in Texas. Did you know that? He's turned on you. He went to Texas and he turned that joke the other way around. Anyway, I won't do that. You're too nice. Even though I am going to Texas next month, but I will not disparage the state who made me a keg. We were in DC and we were meeting with the Bankers Association, U.S. Bankers or National Bankers Association, I guess. And we went in there and we said, we need to talk about what can we do as a combined industries to talk about wire fraud. And immediately they said, whoa. We don't like the term wire fraud. We said, well, what are you talking about? Well, we are banks. We are the most trusted institutions in the United States. And wire fraud implies to the consumer that banking is not safe. So that's an improper term. We prefer the term closing fraud. That's what they wanted to call it. Now, I think that was a number of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's really changed, and I think wire fraud is what we've all agreed to go with, right? Wire fraud, everyone refers to it as that. But that was the banker's take on it. It was like, no, this is your problem, not our problem. Well, it's a problem that we all need to work on. This refers to your economic contributions that our industry has. And this is something I like to point out because, so remember when you were all younger and you're in, say, first, second grade, and then your friends bring in their parents and they have career day. So someone comes in, they're a fireman, someone comes in, they're a nurse, a school teacher, and then this one kid's mom comes in and gets up in front of the class and says, I am a title professional, I'm a closer. And you think, man, I can't wait to grow up and do that. That sounds awesome, right? So then when you took your tests, the tests when you're figuring out what career is going to work for you, and remember you scored highest in title professional? That was like your career path. So then when the colleges came out and had the college campus career day in your high school, and you went and you tried to find the one with the best title professional program because that's where you wanted to go to school, right? No, none of that exists. None of that exists, right? So I was born into the industry. Many of us here were born into the industry. But the last thing I wanted to do was get into this industry because that's something that it was expected of me from the time I was little, but it happened. But even those, people who are attorneys, they go to school, they become an attorney, and the last thing they think is, I'm going to end up working in the title industry. They maybe apply for an internship somewhere, and they end up working for Chicago Title or something like that, and then they end up not leaving. So it's just not realistic. But what I think is cool is that as an industry, we provide a good living to people. We provide a stable income for people with limited, a lot of times limited education beyond high school. I'm your Alta president, and I have a high school education. That's me, no college. So I don't have to get into singing fight songs like the rest of you have been doing all weekend. It just kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. But that's a real possibility in this industry, and yet we pay good wages and we provide a big contribution to the U.S. economy. This is the number of people employed in the industry across the nation. And my screen is blank, but I think it's over 2,000 in Oklahoma. Is that correct? Or close to 2,000? That's a lot of people. A lot of people. This is the public good that we do. So think about the things that is required of us, but this is okay, let's go back to the FinCEN thing. So on one hand, the federal government is saying, we don't need title insurance. It's not important for Fannie Mae purposes. But on the other hand, FinCEN wants us to collect beneficial ownership information on every transaction that we close because now we're important to them. They want us to report. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They need us, but they don't want us. And here, this slide shows another thing that we do. Think of all the federal tax liens that you pay at closings, state tax liens. Maybe you're collecting. It's a divorce situation, and there's some proceeds that need to be transferred to one spouse or the other. Child support that gets collected at closing, or medical assistance liens. Even paying the real estate taxes. That's something that we do on behalf of the counties and the states. We collect these funds and report it to them. They don't have to go chasing after people. We're doing it for them. If someone owes back taxes and they want to sell, we're collecting all that. We're requiring it. The county's not going after it. We are. So this is something we're doing basically for free. And here's a breakdown of where we spend our money on an average dollar. And I can tell you that looking at 8 cents profit the last couple of years, that seemed a little high to me. But maybe this year might be a little better. But we're spending a lot on our employees and our communities. So another one of our highlights is to promote title insurance. I really honestly don't know what these following slides have to do with promoting title insurance, but they do. So the Alta forms, and I see in this list there's a lot of tribal forms, which are a big deal in northern Minnesota. I assume in a state like Oklahoma, tribal forms are very, very important. These are forms that volunteers help build for Alta and make available to all of you as members. NTRAPs, I think that NTRAPs have been shut down in Oklahoma, I was told, but these are the long-term listing agreements. Are you familiar with those? MV Realty, it rhymes with MV Realty, if you're familiar with that company. We worked with AARP and other groups to get those shut down across the nation. Heirs Property It's a big deal in certain communities, not all that of a big deal where I am, but think about the wealth of a family is held within their real estate, and there's elderly parents living in a home, and all the children move off to another state, and then the parents die, and who's going to keep up the taxes on that property? Who's going to make sure that it just doesn't go into tax foreclosure? Who's going to protect the wealth that has been built up in this home and make sure that the family members rightfully get it? So Alta is working in a lot of states to protect those rights. This slide, what they threw in here for me last year for the first time, and honestly, I pulled it up on screen. I was something like this, and I pulled it up and I looked at it, and I had no idea what it was. It took me a while to realize that it was in Spanish, and that's why I couldn't read it. So Alta does offer information for your clients that you can get from them in multiple languages. The Good Deeds Foundation. Oh, Casey, you told me you were just visiting with a woman. I have her name back. She just won, she's from Oklahoma, maybe she's here. She just won a Good Deeds award for some work that her company does with Habitat for Humanity. We talked about it a long time ago, so you maybe don't even remember. But the way the Good Deeds Foundation works is that people here, I think as an industry, we tend to be people that like to give back, and we look out for consumers, we look out for our hometowns, and we look out for our neighborhoods. And so if you are a member, well, you don't even have to be a member of ALTA, but if your company or you as an individual are involved in your local community and giving back to your community, you can apply for a grant to ALTA Good Deeds, and we'll review your grants. And every year we issue, a couple $100,000 in grants, $6,000 at a time, to give back to local title companies. They don't go directly to the title companies, but the title professionals who are engaged working with these nonprofits. And so in this case, just last month, Habitat for Humanity here in Oklahoma received $6,000 because one of your members applied for membership or applied for a grant at ALTA. So here's how you can donate to Good Deeds. This is a recipient, someone who Good Deeds provided funds to this group that helps people get into their first home, teaches them about real estate education, and here's a home buyer in their first home. Adaptation and innovation. We talked a lot about that yesterday. So, AI is helpful. As I mentioned yesterday, it also becomes, it's a tool for the bad guys to get into our offices and trick us more, but it's also a good way for us to protect ourselves. So it's an ongoing battle. We use something in our company that tracks all of our emails and uses artificial intelligence to tell us if something wonky is going on with that. So for instance, if I email one of my regular clients and that email is opened in Africa, I get an alert that says, hey, your client is either in Africa, which is unusual, or they've been hacked. And then we can reach out to that customer and figure out what's going on. And this is a good way for us to use technology to keep our customers safe and keep our information safe. Cybersecurity work. Alta does a good job with the best practices. Many of you are, hopefully all of you are familiar with the best practices and constantly updating what the best practices are in order for us to keep all of our trust accounts safe and our operations safe. Digital closings. This is something that, the remote closings are state by state legal, but it's not necessarily legal yet on a national basis. So this is something that Alta has been pushing for and has gotten introduced, but it has not passed yet. Something that I am sure we'll talk about at advocacy if you come to DC next month. Digital payments, we had a whole talk on that yesterday. Again, the best practices is trying to address this. Each state has different rules on what is considered good funds. As we heard yesterday, Texas, ACH is not allowed at all. Some states, that's a preferred method. I don't understand why. But these good fund, I would encourage you to look at your state law and see what is considered good funds, because in Minnesota, I believe that good funds are considered wires and checks that have cleared or something like that after X amount of days. But it doesn't consider FedNow, and it doesn't consider the new payment rails. So in order for us to, although those are probably ways to get secured funds, by statute, they're not considered good funds in our state. So we've got work as an industry to do to educate our legislators to get that passed and clean that up so that we can begin to utilize these new payment rails. Don't know what this is. Oh, this is just where good funds, some states don't even have good fund laws. And that's crazy.
What about saying last year?
Okay, digital funds. Am I going backwards? Yeah, I am. Okay, fraud. We talked about fraud and the seller impersonation. You all get that. And I'm sorry, I didn't bring a watch up here. That's the other Alta 201. Don't wear a name tag. Don't have your phone in your pocket. So I don't know how I'm doing on time. And I think this is CLE, or some sort of education, so I can't go under, right? Even though you all want me to? 15 minutes. 15 minutes. All right, we can try to stretch this. What else do you want to talk about? This is a video that Alta has on their website. I don't think it plays here, but many members have this on. You can borrow this, you can put it on your website to make your clients more aware of fraud and how to avoid it. The Title Action Network, here's where I talk about scan this. Here we could take 15 minutes right here, Wade. No, scan this, and use that code, and you can all register to become TAN members right now. It's greatly appreciated. As I said, it's free. And if you've ever attended, and it only lasts a year, so after a year you have to sign up again. And if you've ever attended an Alta event, the first thing you'll see when you go to register, if anyone here is going to register to go to advocacy, first thing is there's a box that says, yes, I would like to join TAN. And you click that before you register for your event. And that way, every year as you go in to register for events or sign up for a class, it'll ask you that so that your membership never lapses. Importance of Oklahoma. So this is good to see because as I mentioned, I was on the plane and I was going through this, and my slide looked like this, and it said XXX House members, 2 senators, and then there were no names or any of their committees or anything like that. So it looks like you've got Kevin Hearn, who's on Ways and Means, and then Financial Services. You know, last year, thank goodness for hurricanes, because last year that sounds terrible, right? But last year I was called to speak before the House Financial Services Committee and testify on behalf of Alta, all right? I was called on Monday and they said, you need to be here on Wednesday to testify on Thursday. And it was scary, all right? It was scary. So I get on a plane and I go to DC and I spend a whole day just getting grilled in this room with preparing, and this person's going to be like this, and this person's a jerk, and this person's really nice, and it's going to be awful, and it's going to be great, and it's all these things, and you've got all these mixed emotions. And then Congress shut down to send all their members home because Hurricane Helene was coming. So I didn't have to go. I didn't have to testify. Yes. No, I shouldn't say that. I would have liked to have gotten before Congress and told them more about what it was. My written testimony was submitted to them, so it would have been nice to have Frank Lucas there as a friend from Oklahoma, hopefully, that I could speak to on that committee. 77, so some of you raised your hands, 77 members here from that are 10. Got to go back here. 1 Oklahoma member has donated to TIPAC. And, okay, think about this. 1 member has contributed to TIPAC. TIPAC is we did the OLTA PAC last night. TIPAC is the national one. 1 person in your association has given, and I don't know the amount. I know that the maximum amount you can give is $5,000. In return, TIPAC contributed $195,000 to 28 candidates in Oklahoma in this current cycle. So I would encourage you also, you're very gracious with your checkbooks last night to OLTA, but I would encourage you also to think about contributing on a national basis because it's important as well. And as you can see, you're getting a good bang for your buck. We're giving back $195,000 based on one person contributing. And this weather is awesome. It reminds me of getting out of Congress. I got to, the hurricane saved me there. Maybe the thunderstorm will stay me here. Okay, I've talked about Alta One, advocacy. That's happening in like a week or two. And I know that some of you are going to be there. Casey's going to be there representing Oklahoma. Several of you will be there. Several others will be there. This is a great event. If you've never gone, it's hard to explain. You go there, you fly in on a Sunday night or Monday morning, and Monday and Tuesday, there's just prep meetings, and they talk to you about what the issues are in DC and what's going on and what Alta's ultimate goal is and how they're protecting you, what they want you to do. And then on Wednesday afternoon, you break into groups based on your state. So you get together with all the people from your own state and you come up and you strategize, and they give you talking points to talk to your people about, and then they set up appointments for you. So you've got a little app and it says go to this office at this time, and you go up to Capitol Hill, and you walk in and you meet with the 2 senators and 5 Congress people from your state. Go into their offices. It sounds intimidating, but honestly, most of the time you're meeting with like a 24-year-old kid, and because your congressperson has to go make a vote. But it's super impressive that these 20 people in their early 20s can go from your meeting. They just finished talking to a group of people about restaurant issues, and then you come in and talk about title insurance, and then the dog food people come in after that, and they sit down and they understand and they listen and they take notes and they follow up, and it's really impactful, and it's really fun. It's really fun. I would encourage you to wear comfortable shoes if you're there. It's a lot of walking. I've seen some women will bring heels in their bag, and then they wear tennis shoes, and then they switch before they go into a meeting. But I don't do that. I just wear the heels the whole time. Alta One, that's in October, as I mentioned. That'll be at the, I don't know, does it say? New York Hilton Midtown. So right down by Times Square. Should be a good time. The underwriters are throwing parties, and sounds weird. My brother's 3 years younger than me. Get that? Okay, get this. In the bio, it said that in 1989, I think, my dad retired. So my dad retired, and my brother and I took over the company. It was the day before my 25th birthday, and my brother had just turned 22. He'd been out of college for 6 weeks and had worked in the company for about 4 weeks. And my dad said, "I'm done. I'm out. Good luck, you guys." That's crazy. That's crazy shit right there. Because I wouldn't even lease a copy machine from me at that point. So I don't know what anyone was thinking by trusting us with it. And I don't even know where I was going with that, but that is crazy. But I would encourage you to come to Alta One. It's a great time. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So my brother, prior to joining the company, when he was like 13 and 14 years old, he started a band. And this was in the 70s, I guess, or early 80s. So it was the music scene. They were called Warlord, right? Warlord. We're badass. So then they all went off and they started their careers, and they get into their 50s and they decide, we should get the band back together, right? So they there we go. That's what I thought too when they said they were going to get the band together. So they get the band together and they're like, that doesn't sound so cool. Oh, someone's car alarm's going off. So they changed the name to Earload. I don't know if that's any better than Warlord, but they changed the name to Earload. They just changed 2 letters or 1 letter. So it's my hope that Earload is going to play in New York at the president's reception. So I hope to have you all come and see my brother's band play in DC. That would be pretty fun. Otherwise, you could come to the brewery in Hastings, Minnesota. They play there quite often. And that's also where my congresswoman likes her favorite IPA. So I get that and I ship it to DC for her. See, that works too. Alta has a store now. If you want to buy Alta gear, I've been told, I don't know firsthand, that those cups are not insulated and people don't like them. So I'll tell you that. If you are not already an Alta member, scan this. I would encourage you to join. The benefits by far outweigh the cost, and especially for a smaller company, we've made the price even more affordable. And questions. A lot of times I take this slide out because I hate answering questions. But I think we have time. Wade, do we still have time? We have time. Any questions? Or you could save them all for Ashley because you haven't heard from Missouri yet.
Hey, do you have an opening at convention? I'm still looking for a band, so maybe I can get your brother there.
Sure. Yeah. They're looking for backup singers. Any questions for me? I'm happy to. I want to thank you too for having us here. Really, really welcoming. It feels like I go to all these state conventions. I think I have, 7 or 9 or something like that this year. I have 18 or 19 trips I have to go on. And it's always welcoming to come to the state conventions because the people are just real. And title people are so nice. And I want to say that Oklahoma title people are even especially nice. I really mean that. I go to a lot of them, and this one's very special. So thank you all very much.